All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight, for our topic, I'd like to think about the word entitlement and what it means. Does anybody, what do you think of when you think of the word entitlement?
You owe it to me.
Okay?
Rights.
Uh-huh. Any other thoughts about that word?
Benefits.
Uh-huh.
Usually involves thinking of yourself more highly than you ought to be.
Yeah. That's kind of the idea that I've been thinking about as far as that word. A couple things I came across. It's the belief that one is inherently deserving of special privileges or special treatment. And then the entitlement mentality is defined as a sense of deservingness or being owed a favor when little or nothing has been done to deserve special treatment. Someone with a sense of entitlement may not say thank you or show other signs of appreciation for what they have. This is because they believe it is their right to have everything, so they don't value anything. They have a sense of entitlement about money, possessions, or friends. So then, where I got my inspiration for this was is a book. I listened to the audio, "Raising Grateful Kids in an Entitled World" by Kristen Welch. I actually didn't get the whole way through the book, I didn't listen to the whole audio. But what I did listen to, I found it quite interesting. It doesn't take long for a special treat to become an expected one. I'm not sure if that's how you find things or not. If we get it once, it doesn't take long until we expect it again. So I have a couple questions as we get down through here. If you think about entitlement, should entitlement have any place in the Christian life? I'd like if there is some discussion, so what do you think? Is there a place for entitlement in our lives as Christians?
Well, the meetings I heard from about the word, it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, it kind of seems like there is two different meanings to entitlement. So the one where you feel like you're entitled to something when you really don't deserve it, that one's definitely not something for our lives, for Christians.
My mind is more a little bit to, if we're Christians, we're entitled to be called the sons of God. That's not in the sense that we deserve it.
Right.
I don't know if that fits or not, but my mind went there.
Yeah, I think it does fit. I'll get to that in a little bit, but yeah, that's a good point. Any other thoughts on that?
Also, for salvation, because of what Christ has done, I don't know if we don't really use the word entitled, but by the grace of God that we can be saved. But then there comes commitment on our part when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it costs Christ a great debt.
Yeah, it wasn't free. So maybe along with that, do Christians have rights?
They have one right. They have the right to the tree of life.
Yeah, I have that verse, Revelation 2:7. I'll just read that. He that hath an ear to hear, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. And another verse, Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. So I asked if do Christians have rights? If so, is that entitlement mentality?
Is there a difference in having rights and demanding our rights?
Okay, you're asking the question.
Well, I think there is. If you're a citizen of the United States, there are rights that are deemed to be ours.
Mhm.
But people can walk over our rights, and we don't really get to enjoy them. So we don't command our rights.
All right.
1:12, but as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name. And that, the word right there would not be something necessarily that we try to obtain or demand. It would be something, an authority or he makes us worthy. It's not that we become worthy ourselves. It's something he gives us.
Mm-hmm. I put down here, we should have a sense of unworthiness, not entitlement. So yeah, I think there is a pretty big difference there. What our attitude is toward it. Do we feel like we deserve it, or do we feel unworthy? Any other thoughts on that?
I'm not sure how relevant this is. You asked if Christians should feel entitled. Is that how you asked it? Something about should Christians
Do Christians have rights? Or
usually have rights? I thought you
is that entitlement mentality?
I know we shouldn't have the entitlement mentality. I was just thinking, could we be taught that entitlement mentality? Then when we become born again, does it automatically switch? You know what I mean? If we teach our children that they can have anything and everything they want,
Yeah.
we teach them to be entitled.
Yeah.
And then once they become born again, do you think it switches automatically?
Well, do habits die just like that? I mean, there's stories of people that have an alcohol problem, and it's like it turns off when they become a Christian, but it doesn't work that way necessarily for everyone. So everyone's experience can be a little different. So yeah, it might be something that you have to work at to get a different mentality.
If that's the case, a Christian could have the entitlement mentality for a little bit.
Yeah.
For a little while.
Yeah, I mean, we're all none of us have arrived, right? So we all have to keep working on our lives. Let God work on our lives. So another question, how can we tell if we have entitlement in our lives? So if it's possible that it could be there, then how do we tell if it is? There's a lot of things really that could point to it, or that could kind of go right along with it. Pride, like was mentioned, and I forget what the other one was already.
Complaining.
Complaining, yes. So if we're complaining, then we're not grateful, right? But yeah, back to that question, how can we tell if it's in our lives? Yeah, if we have some of those things, complaining, pride, if we have that, then we might have some entitlement there too. So prayer, I think, is one way we can ask God to show us. And we can ask people. Those around us, they probably can see it better than we can. So if we know we have it, how do we get rid of it?
Repent.
Yeah, that's a good start.
And replace it with rejoicing and thanksgiving.
That's good, yep. Couple things here. Not spending on yourself, but spending on others. Giving to others instead of spending on ourselves. What happens when we do that? We start giving to others. What happens?
They want more.
What happens to you though when you give?
Depends what attitude you have in giving it.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
Another careful giver.
Can make a difference.
I think a good example of that entitlement thing would be, we go back to the children of Israel when they left the land of Egypt and they were not satisfied with the food that God had given them. And they wanted the leeks and the garlic and the onions or whatever they named anyhow. They were looking back of what they had been brought away from, and they were desiring to still have that.
Mm-hmm.
How much better could you have had it that the food was just supplied, you didn't have to work for it, basically, go out and get it. But we're leaving satisfied today if that was done. Would you want to just eat potatoes every day, that's all you eat? Now, man, I love potatoes, I just use that example.
I'm afraid I'd be tempted to complain. I don't think it'd take long either.
Potato chips are, right?
Yeah, we might be pretty hard on them sometimes, but I don't know if that'd be a whole lot different. But yeah, if we, instead of focusing on ourselves, we focus on someone else, it tends to make us happier and we tend to be more content. When we help others, it stirs up gratitude. Because when we're helping others, we see their needs. And it can help us to realize what we have. Because there's a lot of people out there that have way less than we do.
So how far do you go with that situation? You just let anybody run over you?
Okay.
If they owe you money, you've done something for them, they owe you money, just forget about the whole thing, and after all, isn't that entitlement? You think you need it?
Okay.
I understand, people probably bring up, you're not supposed to take them to the law and all that kind of stuff, but, really, in reality, not even talking about that, as far as just paying your bills.
Yeah.
You say, well, forget it. Doing you a good job. Enjoy it.
I'd say that takes wisdom, but I don't have a cut and dried answer for that. Somebody else?
You probably can get as many opinions with there is people on that issue.
Yeah. somewhere here, I think I had something that had to do with that. What was the question? I can't lay my eyes on it right now, but I think it had to do with, can you cause someone to become entitled, or yeah, can you be the cause of entitlement mentality in someone else? So maybe we'll get to that later. So moving on down here, on Sunday we had Maynard talked about discipline, self-control. Does that? Okay, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here the way it looks. How can we get rid of entitlement in our lives? So I mentioned some things there. Basically getting the focus off ourselves. And then I have the question, do we need self-control to get rid of entitlement? I mean, I think how else do we get rid of entitlement if we have no discipline? And obviously we need to ask God again, because we can't do it on our own. If children or adults get what they want when they want it, they don't learn self-control. If children or adults don't have to exercise self-control, it affects many areas of our lives, from overspending to sexual promiscuity. If we want our children to have grateful hearts, that is destroyed if we try to simultaneously give them the world and everything they want, or everything they want. It's hard to have both. So it's if we want our children to be grateful, but we give them everything they want, we basically are doing it backwards. We're going to cause the other problem. They're not going to be grateful because they have everything. We have to understand that we are missing something, and we can't really teach that if we give them everything. So, to kind of sum that up maybe, when we have everything, we are thankful for nothing. When we have nothing, we're thankful for everything. So you see the difference. If you go to a poor country, people there can be happier than what we are, and we have lots of things. So that's kind of the idea, I think, behind that. If we don't have much, then if we do get some, we tend to be thankful because we're not used to getting. But once we're used to getting, then we become unthankful. It can happen really fast. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't take long for a special treat to become an expected one. You might think it's just in children that they act that way, but I think we as adults sometimes act a lot like children. Sometimes. At least for myself anyways.
One thing that may help us in seeking to remove the attitude of entitlement in the wrong sense, that it's selfish, it's focused on what we think we deserve, is recognizing how seriously we have offended God by our sin and the mercy He has shown to us, the grace He's extended to us. And if we don't recognize those things, we'll be like the servant who owed 10,000 talents to his master and was forgiven. And then he went and started choking a fellow servant for 100 denarii. He was not grateful, he was not thankful, he had that entitlement mentality. And another aspects to it, I think, is simply obedience, consolation, it's in Christ, comfort of love, fellowship of the Spirit, the affection and mercy that Philippians 2 talks about. We are to be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. So it begins with how you're thinking and what your motives are.
Yeah, that's a good example there of that servant that was forgiven. Yeah, I like that. That's
Usually it helps us to deal with it and call it what it is. I think I heard David call it sin.
yeah.
Philippians goes on to say, let this mind be in you which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery, is how it's translated, but the basic meaning was something to be held on to, something to be grasped, as eagerly as a thief that sees the plunder he's looking for, the loot he's looking for. Jesus didn't consider it something to be grasped, to be equal with God. He didn't have that entitlement mentality. And if anyone could have, certainly he could, because
Yeah.
he was God.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, getting rid of entitlement. We need self-control. We all, earlier we asked the question, how do we get rid of it? And then the other question was how to tell if we have it in our lives. What if people come up to us, or someone comes to us and tells us that they do see it? Then how do we act? Do we act like a child? Do we kick and fight? Or I guess sometimes if we have pride in our lives, it is going to be hard to accept that we do have it. That we are entitled, maybe we do have that entitlement mentality. So how do we respond whenever someone does tell us? Something that I came across, the advice we need is often the advice we don't want. So somebody might be willing to help us, but maybe we don't want to hear it. Yeah, self-control, that could be a whole subject in itself. Something else I came across, do we have self-control on the internet? Do we feel like we have a right to say whatever we want to on there? If we won't say it face to face, do we say it on the internet? And something that I had come across too was if you are unkind on the internet, then you are unkind. I thought that was kind of no beating around the bush there. So yeah, I think as was mentioned, humility. So yeah, opposite of pride would be humility, and that's definitely an important thing that we're going to need if we want to keep the entitlement mentality out of our lives. There's a verse in 2 Chronicles 7:14 that says, "If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, and heal their land." Talks about being humble there and praying.
entitlement in a person's life, and that's, I think, one of the ways also is a lack of peace and joy in a person's life. And going back to think of the prodigal son, we used to say son, and I think there was the prodigal sons. As far as I'm concerned, that second one that stayed at home was just as bad or worse than the other one. He had pride in his life. He thought he was entitled perhaps to have a calf too to help it, have a married feast with his friends and all that there. And he definitely did not have joy in his heart because of his unforgiveness. Not saying what his brother did was right, but he still appeared from the story there that is recorded, he did not forgive his son. He had bad attitudes.
Yeah.
And if we have bad attitudes in our lives, perhaps we have the thought of it in our lives.
Yeah, if we have entitlement mentality, we won't be much fun to be around. Another thing that might kind of show us that we maybe have it is if we won't admit our shortcomings. When we are wrong, if we don't admit it, which that's pride. So if we can, maybe we need to change our perspective too if we are feeling entitled. If we can remember that we are just a speck in the universe and we're only here for a short time. It wasn't that long ago we had a speaker here that was talking about the universe, creation. If you start thinking about how big God is and how big this world is, we're just about nothing really. Without God, we are nothing. Colossians 1:16-17 says, "For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist." God made everything, and he can do whatever he wants. And we are nothing. So without him, we are nothing. If we can remember that. And how do we respond whenever we have success in life? Do we still care about others? Or do we start feeling like we deserved it and it's ours, we worked hard for it, so we don't care about others? It's pretty easy to be conceited if we are successful. Instead of that, we should have empathy and compassion to those around us. Another thing, we should allow other people to call us out, be open to others speaking into our lives. Because others are going to be able to see that we're entitled even if we can't. They're going to see it before we do, most likely. So it's really good if we can have an open relationship with others so that they can speak into our lives. And then if we can have the humility to take action and make required changes. Be less selfish was another one I had here. The opposite of selfishness is selflessness. Jesus was a good example of that. Like David mentioned earlier, he talked about how he humbled himself and became a servant. He didn't have to do that, but he chose to. In Matthew, Jesus says, "But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted." Another thing that might help us if we have that mentality, entitlement mentality, volunteer. Volunteer to help others. help those who are struggling, people that don't have much, or that just need help. It's a good way to see things through their eyes if we are willing to help them. And in doing that helps us to be thankful. It can help us to be thankful when we see the needs of others around us. Okay, so now another question. Can we be the cause of entitlement mentality in someone else? Any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure if we can be the cause of it, but I'm pretty sure we can help it along if it's there. By the way we live our lives or the way things we do. Maybe I should say I do.
Yeah. So what if we see it in our children? If they're acting a little bit entitled? Should we look at ourselves maybe and make sure we're not being a bad example? A good example of it, a bad example?
Proverbs says that whoever flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. That could be one way that someone is trapped by our flattery, is that they feed their self-importance and their sense of entitlement. It also says that a man who pampers his servant will find him to be a son in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess you could maybe say it could be contagious. If we've got it in our lives, the people around us might start picking up on it too, and they might start acting the same way.
As far as causing it, I'm pretty sure we can cause it in our children. I'm not sure we can cause it from the church, but from the church, I'm pretty sure we can help it along.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's still a choice, but yeah, we do tend to, we are influenced by others, so, or at least it can be that way. So what about, if we continually bail someone out, does that lead to entitlement mentality? Like, that might be kind of back to Harold's question about, like, if you're just giving to someone and then, or they owe you something, how do you handle that? If you give to someone and then they come back and they're asking for more, what do you do?
I guess you'd have to analyze the, if it's somebody that's not a needy person, I don't think you repeat the gift if they haven't been in person. I mean, it wasn't intended to be a gift, but they obviously didn't recognize their responsibility, don't repeat it. I'm not talking about some widow or somebody that has one that's
Yeah.
category. I'm talking about somebody that should be responsible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thought is kind of, like, it's good to help people that are in need. Like, we don't just like, oh, I'm not helping no one because I don't want them to become entitled. It's not that way. But it's, if it becomes a habit to where they expect help and then they don't try to help themselves, that's kind of, if someone is able to help themselves but they're not trying because you're enabling their bad habit, then that's not good.
Proverbs 19:19 says, a man of great wrath will suffer punishment, for if you rescue him, you will have to do it again.
Yeah. Maybe it's good to let people fail sometimes. I mean, if you think about a child, you could help them sometimes out of a situation, but like sometimes they may just need to experience the failure so that they can succeed, so they can learn.
And you'd be surprised if you look around at some of the very successful businesses that you go back 40 years, 60 years ago, the founders admit that the best thing that happened to them was they failed.
Yeah, I've heard someone mention that the people that are rich, well, I don't know if it's a general statement or what, but like, basically they're standing on a pile of failure. That's the idea. They didn't give up. If we give up, then I guess that's the end. But like, yeah, we are going to fail. It's what we do with that. Do we keep going, try again, pick ourselves back up? Something too, just something to think about. Praise glorifies, encouragement inspires. So here's an example. So in school, do we praise the child for the good grade, or do we affirm that they studied hard? I don't know if I mean, yeah, you want to praise someone for a good job they did, but yeah, maybe encouragement is better. Because there might be a child that tries their best, but they still can't get an A+. So what do? Just not say anything? Or do you encourage them and say, that they studied hard and you recognize that? Just something to think about. Any other thoughts so far? I think I'm about done here, so anybody have anything they'd like to add, or any questions?
I thought of a character in the Bible. Samson saw a woman in Timnah, and he told his father, "Get her for me." And he told his father twice. I feel that's a pretty good example of what happens today in sensitive time. Get it for me.
Yeah. We tend to want it. We want it now. So, in closing, we can probably all come up with a list of things we need to get rid of. Bad habits, for example. We should also have a list of things to add. So if you can think of some things you'd like to get rid of in your life. Bad habits, for example. It could be anything. We should have a list of things we want to add. And pick one thing at a time. If we try to work on everything at once, it probably ain't going to work. But yeah, if we pick one at a time and then pray, because praying is one of the most powerful tools. Ask God to help us. And it's going to take His help to have self-control and have humility so that we can overcome entitlement mentality. Instead of being entitled, we can be grateful people and thankful. And yeah, it can be easy to forget to thank someone when they do something for us. So yeah, sometimes we have to check ourselves and, are we thankful? What did we thank God for today? If that's, you probably heard it said before, if you had only what you thank God for, what would you have? All right, thanks for your help. I'll turn it back over to Roger.